Whoops. You heard that. That was just a pile of paint just spilling on the floor. That's okay, though. We can clean it up later. Luckily, it was still in the bottle. And there's not a big, huge mess to clean up. Hello, hello. It is Erica from Wallace House Designs, and we are going to be painting a really fun pumpkin cupcake. So if you are here catching the live, say good morning. Hello. How are you doing? Tell me where you're from. If it's your first time. If this is, if you're catching the replay, make sure you put that hashtag replay to let me know that you hopped on a little later and came to hang out with us and learn with us even after hours. Hey, Terry. Okay, let me get my little hair out the way because my hair is shedding. Hey, Jerry. Hey, Terry. Okay, so I think I can't remember. I want to say the pumpkin goes on this side, but it doesn't matter. So if you're wondering what this is, good morning, Jerry. Okay, so we got the Terry, we got the Jerry, we got the Sherry. Rachel broke it up. She has finally given us a different name that doesn't rhyme. Terry, Jerry, Sherry. There's a few more that'll pop on a little later. Good morning, Melissa and Juanella and Ray. Okay, so this morning we are going to be painting the Halloween pumpkin. And, oh, you know what I didn't do? I did not, but I can pull it up on my phone. No biggie. I didn't print out one for me to go kind of go off of to the mock-up. That's the word. That's the word. Okay, so let me pull it up real quick. It's in our September releases. So it has been uploaded to the website for digital download. So if you're wanting the template or the JPEG, you can go to Wallace House Designs. If you put the word cupcake in the comments, I will be able to link all the places for you. So don't worry, you don't have to go searching on your own. After the live, I'll come in and I'll put like where you can get the blank, where you can get the template, where you can get the JPEG, that all that good stuff. So let me find what it looks like and I'll show you. It's super duper cute. There it is. Well, there it is. It's gonna be fun. Okay, but first we got to do a background. So let's take this out of the way. So we don't need this. I'll explain this a little later. If you notice, it's a little transparent and it's gonna make tracing a lot easier than going in blind with just a plain sheet of paper. I'll show you exactly what I used for that. So I'm actually going to move all this because I kind of just threw it in a pile over here behind me because we'll need it a little later. I'm using my mixed media pad today. If you notice, I'm not using wood. I'm going to use my mixed media pad because I want to play with some stencils, some background stencils, and that I made this morning, and I kind of want to test them out. So we're going to do that here today. So there's no purple. There's not a lot of green in here. There's no purple. There's no blues. I think I'm going to go with purple just to make it pop. I think I'm going to go with like a really, let's go with a light purple. Everything else in there is kind of light. Let's go with a light purple. I'm going to go with purple cow. Okay. And I'm going to go with purple cow and probably purple rain to do our background color. And we're going to do a really fun, really just kind of laid back background. It's going to be super, super forgiving. So I've got purple cow and purple rain. Okay. Those are the two colors that I'm using. See, they're not very close together, but they are in the same color family. So I'm going to grab this is a 3/4 inch flat brush, not fancy at all. Got my paint rag. I have finally just decided that we're going to keep the paint rag over attached to the cart instead of trying to keep it in my lap, because every time I shift in my chair, my paint rag goes flying. All right, if you notice, I'm not putting a complete coat on the paper. I am just picking up the different colors. I put a good little splotch going in kind of crisscross motions. And now I'm going over that with a little bit of the purple rain, the darker purple. And I'm just kind of muddling them together. I don't want this to be a perfectly curated or manicured background. I want this to be a little bit, and it's okay if we kind of mix them together a little bit more. You don't want individual brush strokes showing. You just want it to be messy. That's what I was saying. Like, this is super forgiving, super, super laid back background. We're just going to do a really cool textured looking background. Students testing, so silent watching for me today. Happy Halloween cake. Yay. Oh, no. Yay for the Halloween cupcake. I mean, happy Halloween cupcake too, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go full table so that you can actually see more of this and less of me. And I'm sorry for the light. I'm trying to get it to where y'all don't see the light, but you do see the, that's a little better. That's a little better. Okay. The problem is if I get too close to the project, my paintbrush starts knocking it out. Hey, Lisa, I can paint messy really well. I was hoping that this one would kind of lower the anxiety of painting for some of us. This is a really fun, there's different names for this type of background. This is actually a background that some home decor people will put on their walls to kind of give not so much of a flat color. See that right there? That's kind of harsh looking right there. We're just going to kind of muddle it down. It gives it just a very two-tone look without it having to be harsh lines of where the color stops, like stripes or polka dots. You just get a broken up, kind of a heathery look. Okay. And you just kind of pick up and you're just really going in like an X, like you're just doing X's, but not perfect X's. And I'm kind of moving my brush around so that nothing stays perfectly manicured. You know, we really want this to be really loose and fluid. We want all these colors to kind of meld together. And this goes on really quick. Okay. Get that little corner up there because I want my entire piece of paper covered. Okay, I need a little bit more Purple Rain because I need to break up this down here just a teensy bit. I said last night when Graham and I were sitting on the couch, we were talking about something. Oh, I was asking him to turn the volume up. I have really hard time hearing the TV sometimes. And I try not to ask him to turn it up too much because sometimes I will ask him to turn it up and it's just for my benefit. We have the closed captions on the TV at all times because it's easier for me to just read than ask him to constantly turn it up and wake Kraylin up. So that's why was I telling that story? Oh gosh, it was about hearing. It was about hearing. Oh goodness gracious, I lost it last night. Oh, a wee bit. I asked him, I was like, can you turn up just a wee bit? And he goes, oh, a wee bit, like just a wee bit. And he made fun of the way I said it. And so I was like, I just need to do just a wee bit more. Okay. There's our background. We need to let that dry completely before we start transferring any of our design. How's my arm? It's doing a little bit better. Every day I wake up and it's doing a little bit better. I'm noticing different hurts. Like it hurts differently now. So I feel like even though it still hurts, because it hurts differently, try to follow my logic here. Because it hurts differently, I feel like that means it's healing. Does that make sense? I know that sounds backwards logic, but I feel like because it's a different kind of hurt, even though it still hurts, it's just not the same hurt as initially when it broke. I feel like that means it's healing. I mean, in my brain, I'm just going to believe that. If it's not true, if we have any nurses or doctors watching, just let me believe that because that's what I'm holding on to here. We're just blow drying this completely dry. What you've been up to since the last time I saw you. So the last time you saw me was Friday. Because you're in the paint studio. We painted our last tutorial for September. And it turned out so stinking cute. I loved the cactus that we painted in the studio. What did I do this weekend? It's been a busy weekend. I hung out with some family. What did the kids and I do? We did stuff. If you wouldn't have asked me, I probably would have offered it up freely. Now I can't think of it here. It'll come to me. Hey, Ashley. What's up, Sheila? And Billy. Oh, look, teacher's here. Teacher, I haven't seen your name in the comments for a while. You've been busy, lady. And Francis, y'all, I'm going to tell y'all right now. Y'all see Francis's name right there? I know we're not supposed to be jealous. I know that's one of the big things that the Bible tells us not to be, but I'm very jealous of Francis right now. Very jealous of Francis. Very. She's building a new house. And, you know, we've been in the process of, I'm going to say very loosely building, because there's been no building involved in ours so far. But we've been building a new house too, or in the process of. And her house is painted. It's painted. I saw the picture, Francis. We won't even go into that. Hers is painted. Mine's not even foundation poured. And I'm frustrated, but I'm not, because all in due time, right? All right, so I'm just, and with light pressure, I shouldn't, because look, there was some wet paint. So I'm going to do one little, it's right down here. We need this to be bone dry, because our transfer paper and our stencils don't need to be sticking to our background. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, much better, much better. Everything's dry. So let's transfer our design on. So you notice my design is see-through. I can see my background. That is such a beautiful thing, because I don't necessarily want to take the time. Why is there water all over my transfer paper? I don't want to take the time to use my graphite paper or my transfer paper to transfer all these inside lines if I'm not ready to paint that quite yet, right? I know I have steps upon steps before I ever get to painting the details of all of that, right? Now, one thing I do try to do with my designs is that I try to keep them as simple as possible. I try not to add in all of the like stripes and polka dots into the templates. I try to keep them as least busy as possible. And that way you can use your own creativity, and that you can really kind of maximize the use out of the template, but it also keeps the tracing to a minimum, especially if you're using the paper template. So I'm going to grab, I'm just making sure I have one that I don't want to necessarily use a pencil or a pen on this one. Now with regular paper, you can use a pencil or a pen, but this is kind of like a really, really thin piece of like rice paper or plastic. It has that kind of matte finish to it. I'm just going to take the back of a paintbrush, and I'm going to transfer this design with the back. Let me show you. I'm going to not, you can barely see that. Well, I don't think you can see it because of the messiness, but I can see that. Now, if I needed to see it even more, I can use this is kind of a flimsy paintbrush. Let's use this one. One that I can really press down with. Can you see that a little bit better? See that right there? The graphite line? Now you can use a pen. It's just your pen is going to go through this paper. And it's okay if you get a little messy with the carbon paper. It can be erased, okay? And nothing needs to be exact, because none of these lines here are set in stone. You can manipulate these lines a little bit to your own painting ability or your own style. Okay, I'm just not I'm keeping my fingers on the paper to where they don't shift. Okay. No, wait, we need to do the pumpkin. Because we're about to base coat all the things. Okay. Yeah, perfect. There we go. So I'm gonna put this paintbrush back up. Like I said, they do make a stylus. Mine's somewhere in there. It looks like it looks like a it looks like a makeup brush, but instead of having brushes on each on the end, it has like a little metal ball on each end. And I have some. I think they're in my Cricut because I use them on my Cricut all the time, and I have some over my nail art caddy that I sometimes steal from my painting caddy over here. And they never make it back because I'm not very good at putting things back up. But that's how you transfer a design. That's just the bare, just the bare minimum of tracing a design. We may have to trace this drip over again, and that's okay because nothing's set in stone. And because we did this on see-through paper, we'll be able to perfectly line it back up. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, we're going to have to trace that drip again no matter what, because we're going to paint this entire thing orange. I don't want to have to get real precise with each little drip 2 times, right? So if I want to make this as simple as possible, I'm going to do my color blocking that makes it simple for me. So let me show you how I do that. So we've got orange, yellow, and white, okay? I'm not going to worry about this white quite yet. I'm going to come back and do that in a separate step, but I want to paint orange, yellow, and white. So let's go ahead and base coat those. So let's pick our oranges. Let's pick Straight from the Bottle Warm Sunset. So let's start with that. We're going to do Straight from the Bottle Warm Sunset. I'm trying to think. I traveled with some paint yesterday for Raylyn. Raylyn and I did a small little quick project yesterday. Away from the house, and I think some of that paint that I'm going to need today is going to be in that. I know my white for sure, although I think I have white right here. Yeah, I have white right here, so I may not have to go. It's right here on the floor. I just set it right next to the. Okay, so let's see. Usually you would paint a white background. Let me see how this covers on top of this purple. I think it's going to be fine. I think I'm going to put a white background under the yellow, though. This orange is going to need 2 coats regardless. So let's just go ahead and get the first coat on here. I'm not doing any shading in this step. I'm just color blocking. So let's go ahead and get our first coat. Okay, you can turn your canvas around. And even though this is not a canvas, if you ever hear me call anything, even if it's wood, I call a canvas a canvas. Like anything that you're painting, it's your canvas, it's your workspace, it's your project. I sometimes will interchange the word canvas with project. I'm finally working on my apple set, Terry. I can't. That one so far, we're not supposed to have favorite projects, right? That we're supposed to love them all equally. I'm not gonna lie. That apple project that we did back in August. All those videos can be found in our videos tab. But that was probably one of my favorite projects that we did this year. Between that one and I think Elvis. I've really enjoyed painting Elvis with y'all. Okay, so I'm just base coating or color blocking in my orange for my cupcake. And like I said, I'm not going to worry about my cupcake getting the orange on the entire cupcake, even though they're supposed to be white. I'd prefer make it easy on myself. Make it easy on myself and paint it evenly. Then try to like fussy paint inside all those curves that are in that drizzle. I love designing with a drizzle. If you haven't noticed, anything sweet normally gets a drizzle. It's just something about something being dipped in chocolate or having icing just drizzled on it. It just makes it look even more yummy. And so I tend to throw a little yummy drizzle on everything. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. Let's go ahead and bump over to our yellow. We're going to use Sunny Day. But we are going to put a white background underneath it. So let's go ahead and just do that real quick. We're going to use warm white. Clean our brush. Grab our warm white, and we're going to base coat this entire bottom half. Warm white. Okay, if you notice, I'm not loading a massive amount of paint on my brush. I don't want it to be sloppy. You can't see this, but I can still see the indentions of my little cupcake. The actual cupcake part, the yellow, that's supposed to be yellow. I can still see that. Oh, I picked up a little bit of that orange. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it because I can kind of erase it with some brush strokes. I can just do some clean brush strokes. Get up on the chisel, make a really nice and tight line. Fill this in. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. So we're using right now, it's a 1/2 inch angle. Depending on the size of your project, I'm going to move this way over here. I'm going to move this right here. That might make it a little louder for you. Let's see if I can do this here. I hate like reaching in front of the camera. Okay, there we go. Got our brush clean. We're going to go back and do a second coat on here, but let's blow dry everything. Let's see. Between working full time and working my business, I'm flat wore out. I would say so. That's a lot of hours. Don't be jealous. At least you are still in your house. 80% of my stuff is in storage. Oh no. I mean, I live at the beach, so I'm not complaining, but I will be happy when I'll be happy when you're in your house, because I will be there cheering you on, right? Because I know I've got some stuff in storage too. When we started the process of building the house, I started putting things in storage, things that I knew I wasn't going to need, but also this house was not very organized. The more I got to looking at it, I was like, it would benefit, as seasons close, me going ahead and boxing up all my seasonal stuff and organizing them in a storage unit instead of trying to keep them in organized chaos in the garage. And so even though it's an extra expense, it has saved my sanity on purging as I go. So I have a lot of seasonal things that got purged. I did not mean to put orange on my brush. I wanted to just do my white before I start messing with that orange again. So it has been nice, but we thought that we would be really close to finishing the build this time this year. Girl, we haven't even broke ground. So things will be in storage for a little bit longer, which is fine with me. I'm totally fine with that. I'm just thankful that I know where everything is and it's already organized. So when it's time to put Halloween stuff out, it's just, let's go to the storage unit, pull out the Halloween boxes and put the summer boxes up, like no big deal, or put the fall boxes up. Although we don't really decorate for Halloween. We have like 2 little things that we put out closer to Halloween night, and I just picked them up this year. So it's not even true decoration. All right, so I've got 2 coats of this warm white. And the reason I'm using warm white is because we're using a lot of warm toned colors. And don't think that you have to keep up with what's warm, what's cool. The internet can tell you that. That's something you can cheat and ask the internet, okay? But usually anything that's red toned like this, reds can be cool too. But like oranges typically are warm colors. If it reminds you of like a sunset, it's probably a warm color. Like a traditional sunset, not like a whimsical sunset that has a lot of purples and stuff in it. But like a traditional sunset, it's most likely a warm color. Kind of my rule of thumb. There are some exceptions to that rule. That's my rule of thumb. So far we've used sunny day and warm sunset and warm white. See, I told you when it gets so low, I start bumping it. Mine's in pods and I can't get into, see, we were going to do pods. We were going to order one big pod, and have the pod delivered to the new site when it was time to move in. But the more I thought about it, I was like, no, because I don't know when this is actually going to take place. And I don't necessarily want to be without my stuff. Plus, I've been going in the storage unit periodically and purging things, like having second, like I haven't thought about this in so long. Let me go get rid of it. It's going in the next garage sale kind of thing. So I am thankful that I am able to access my stuff in the event. But we were like, I was dead set. We're just going to get a pod. We're just going to fill the pod with all the stuff in the house and just have it delivered to the new location, and just let it sit there until it's time to move. Which now we don't know when that is. I mean, it could be next year. It could be 5 years from now. I am very thankful that we haven't sold this house yet. We haven't even put it up for sale. We won't do that until it's closer to time. Let's see. And when that happens, we'll have a whole new paint setup. Like we'll have a whole new space where we'll be crafting together. It'll be upset. I am very sad about it. I thought about it last night with Romo and his age. I don't think Romo will be able to get up the stairs when we paint together. That's like a makes me sad because he and I paint together a lot, even when I'm not filming. But he is also a distraction sometimes because he barks so much. I miss my laser. I hate that your laser's in storage. I said, watching while getting out of school, ready for the hurricane. Ooh, y'all. Okay, Cindy, how bad is it? This is legit our first hurricane of the season. Can you believe it? Like it's crazy. It's this late in the season and it's our first one. Are y'all okay? Like, is it just out of precaution? Because sometimes they will release y'all just out of precaution. Okay, so there's our second coat of Warm Sunset. Done with that. Let's blow dry and transfer. This time, I'm going to try and find, I think I have a better paintbrush to transfer our design with. Let's do this one right here. See if this is as flimsy as the other one. Oh no, this is much more. But y'all, look at the one that I was trying to. It's just one of Raylan's. This is another one of Raylan's, but it's way more stiff, and it's gonna transfer better. Wish I knew where my stylist was. Wish I was more responsible. It's probably in there, and I just don't see it. But that's okay. We're gonna move along. Okay, so we've got this dry. I'm checking all the places where the paint looks the thickest and kind of making sure nothing's cold, nothing's too, still wet, and see how I can see through it and I can kind of line it up. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Okay, so I'm going to line it up just like I want it. And I'm going to, can I still see that? Yeah, but I want to trace it. I'm going to, okay, since this is lined up, I'm going to hold my paper down. Okay. And I'm only doing half. That way I can still keep this kind of lined up. Making sure I'm not shifting things. You can also tape it down, but that's the whole point of doing it see-through, so you don't have to mess with painter's tape. Okay. And I'm just going to there we go. Ta-da! So let's put that off to the side. So if you're wondering what I'm using, let me show you what I'm using. Okay. I'm just using tracing paper. Okay. This came from Hobby Lobby. It may have come from Michael's. I want to say it's Master's Touch, so I want to say it came from Hobby Lobby. Doesn't matter what brand, but this is just, it's the 9 by 12. It's the 9 by 12 pack. They don't make an 8.5 by 11. And if they do, it's not at the craft stores. You have to buy it on Amazon or somewhere. But I bought the 9 by 12. One, because that's the size of my mixed media pad. I have a tracing pad for each size of mixed media pad. But I can also, if I have other size mixed media pads that are smaller than this, I can always cut this down to match. Now, what I normally do is I cut this down to be able to feed through my printer. And that way I have a tracer that's see-through. Like I've already got paint on it. See, I've already got paint. It's okay. So I'm just going to make sure that's nice and dry on the backside. So, it makes a tracer to where I'm not having to guess and like do this number to make sure things are matching up. You can do your templates that way if you so choose. Plus, it's a little bit more sturdy than actual paper. Now, if you do that, it gets a little pricey. So if you print a bunch of templates, I wouldn't recommend doing this. But if you do smaller projects, this makes tracing your inside lines a lot easier. All right, so let's get our sunny day. Anytime I say sunny day, sometimes these paint names remind me of songs and I start singing. So please just forgive me if I start singing things and you're like, why is she singing that? So sunny day reminds me of the Sesame Street song. Sunny days, chasing our clouds away. In my head. Half the time I sing it in my head because I don't want to subject y'all to the awful singing. But like Purple Rain, obviously, I mean, can that even be a guess at what that song reminds me of? But there are certain songs that just spark a memory, or certain paint names that spark a memory of particular songs. Okay, so I'm just using my angle brush and I'm just fussy painting this cupcake in. The actual cupcake part, like the cake part. So that's what this is, this little scalloped line. This is just that bare cupcake part. Okay. Now, if you were painting a door hanger, you could follow these steps directly for a door hanger or for a tiered trace set piece, depending on what size you order your blank in or whatever size you print your template or JPEG as. Look at that. Okay. I just wanted to play on some mixed media paper. Okay. My brush. Let's blow dry that. Let's see. I'm catching up on comments. What category, Cindy? What category have they decided it's going to land at? You sold your laser? Well, I guess it was easier selling it than transporting it. Good morning, Shaylin. Hey, Leanne. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so what we're doing, if you're hopping on, if you're just now hopping on, let me put it that way. If you're just now hopping on, we are doing our Halloween cupcake, but we're doing it in our mixed media pad. I'm showing you how to use tracing paper, and I'm showing you how to transfer a design, because a lot of times we use blanks and they're etched, and so a lot of people who don't order blanks are a little confused on, well, how would I do it if I didn't order blanks, if I cut my own? Now, I'm doing it in a mixed media pad, but you could totally do this on a blank, okay? You can cut your blank out and then use your template as a tracing guide to transfer your lines. I like to use tracing paper for smaller pieces because it makes it so much easier lining things up. Now, for bigger pieces, just for cost effectiveness, I do print them out on paper and just kind of eyeball it a little bit. But usually, because I've cut the entire template out for the bigger door hanger pieces, all I have to do is line up the edges. And as long as the edges get lined up, everything should stay lined up. Now, when something's on a a continuous surface like this, it's a lot easier having a tracer that you can see through. So this is tracing paper. I just cut it down from a 9x12 pad that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I sent it through my printer, and I printed the design on it so that I can have it easily easily transfer it. Okay, so the second thing I did today, that's my bad arm, and that hurts really bad to do that. So let's do it to where it doesn't hurt. I made a stencil. I made a stencil with sorry, something caught me off guard. So I'm going to lay my stencil down. Is it as wide as my piece? No, but that's the beauty of a stencil. We can make it as wide as we want. Okay. So we have horizontal stripes that go through our cupcake. So let's do that. I'm going to get a makeup sponge. Now, y'all know I've been bouncing between my beloved memory foam like, okay? So you don't want anything that has visible bubbles in your sponge. You want it to kind of be the consistency of like memory foam, really squishy, really soft, and it holds its shape when you squeeze it. Okay. Now I have been using these from the Dollar Tree. These are makeup sponges. They come in different colors, but I've been picking up the black ones. Don't ask me why. I'm just really funny about keeping things all the same. So when I see a black one, I pick them up, and they have the same feeling. Now this one feels just a tiny bit, just a wee bit, as Graham would make fun of me for, just a wee bit more bouncy and a little bit more stiff, if that makes sense. Like a little bit more. Oh gosh, the only thing that's coming to mind is a stuffed animal. Like you can have a stuffed animal that's not very firm. That's the word, firm. This one feels a little bit more firm. And this one feels less firm, but they both feel like memory foam. Okay, so we're going to use this because we're going to change colors a lot. If I was just going to roll on with the same color, I would use this because this is reusable. I can wash this. If you notice, I've used it before. And I like the fact that it has a point. Say if I had to get really tight into the corner of something, I can use that point to do it. But because we're going to be changing colors, I'm going to use this and just snip as I go. So we're going to take our Straight from the Bottle Warm Sunset. Okay. Straight from the Bottle Warm Sunset. We're going to ghost it out just a little bit with our white. You could also take the yellow and make it more of a yellowy orange if you want to, but I'm just going to put a drop of white in there, and I'm going to take the back of a paintbrush, and we're just going to make something. We call this ghosting it out. If you ever hear me use the term when in doubt, ghost it out, that's what I mean. We're just going to add the white to something, to a color. So we're just going to pick up, see, that's the original color. We added a little white. That's our ghosted out color. And we're going to drop it into that new color, and we're going to tap the majority of it off. Okay. We don't want this sopping wet. We just want it fully covered. So we're going to place our stencil. I just made this on my Cricut. This is not a fancy stencil. I'm going to align my stencil to where the blacked out, I'm going to call this the blacked out stripe. Okay. This is the open or negative space. This is the blacked out stripe. So I'm going to have that to where it protects my little curved piece here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. And we're just going to pounce, 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 pounce. Okay, and make sure that we tap the majority of that paint off of our sponge. We don't want it to be sopping wet to where it goes underneath and bleeds through our stencil. If it does, it's usually 9 times out of 10 user error. It's because we either have too much paint on our sponge or we're using way too much pressure. And I am using a lot of pressure, so I'm going to back off just a little bit because I'm bad about using too much pressure. We want to do light little taps. It's okay if we have to go back and do 2 coats. I want 2 clean coats 2 clean, thin coats than 1 messy, thick coat, right? So I'm not going to go up into this stripe because that's going to be covered by drizzle anyway. So we're going to pick this up and look at our stripes. Now we still need to fill this in on this side. In fact, let's look at our yeah, that's going to be good. Let's blow dry this a little bit because we don't want to transfer smudge. It doesn't take long to blow dry it because these are super thin coats, right? Not a lot of messy paint. Our paintbrush picks up way more paint than our makeup sponge because we tap the majority of our makeup sponge off. So I'm going to just fussy paint into these stripes right here. Just trying to keep it in. I'm not trying to get it on the very, very edge, only because we're going to do a little bit of shading there, okay? So I'm not super crazy about trying to get it all the way to the very tip-top edge. I just want to blend in these transition strips, okay? And there we go. And I did bleed a little bit because I was using a lot of pressure. Don't do what I do. Okay, so this is the side that... Okay. Sound effects help too. All right, there we go. There's our stripes. Now I'm going to try and fix that a little bit. There we go. Let's put this down for a second because we still need to do some stripes down here. So let's go ahead and do our stripes here. I'm trying to think of how I want to go about doing this because it does need to be a little black. Okay, and that's a little scary because it's really hard to fix a mistake that's done in black. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm going to use my blacked out part of my stencil to cover the edges because that's gonna make it as simple as possible for me. It's gonna make it super simple for me. Okay. That way I don't have to worry about getting real precise on the edge right here. It's going to look like there's just white stripes. It's going to look like white stripes. So we're going to snip off the orange of our sponge. So there's the orange because we're done with that, right? If I can hold on to it, I'll throw it away. And I'm not going to take actual black. We're going to take kind of a charcoal gray. I don't like painting elements black because then if you paint them black, it's really hard to go back in and shade. You can't really shade anything because you've used the darkest color that you've got in your arsenal to actually to paint it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Storm Gray. I actually have zinc somewhere, but I think that's one of the colors that we used with Raylan last night. So I'm not gonna go digging in my caddy for that because that's it's right here, but I don't want to have to worry about that. Okay, so here we go. I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm not worried about getting on the very edge. Now this right here, I may get a little bit of a brush and do that and paint that. But I want to get a good little base coat here to where I'm not working too hard on these stripes. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and I am going to get just a small brush. It's going to be an angle brush, about a 3/8 angle. We're going to put some paint on our brush. We're going to kind of mop most of it off, just like we did. We're just going to get a light little coat. Okay, and we're just going to get in that corner and try and paint without getting underneath the stencil. Okay. Do the same thing here and then. Okay. And yes, the sound effects help. At least for me it does. All right, so I'm just going to go, and I'm always working from the stencil in, not into the stencil, if that makes sense. I never want to take my brush and go into, see how this stripe, this blacked out stripe here, I never want to take my brush and go into that. I want to work from the actual plastic of the stencil and work it into the stripe, the painted stripe, as best as I can. Every so often, you're just gonna have to use a light touch to avoid that on these really unique ways that you're kind of fussy painting with the stencil. Okay. All right. And like I said, I'm just picking up really light coats and brushing the majority of it off because I don't want to come in with a super soppy paintbrush and create bleeds underneath my stencil. I just want to get right up on the edge of the cupcake part of the cupcake without making a mess. And there we go. And I did get a little bit of a bleed right there. Not a big deal. Nobody's inspecting my cupcake. This is just for me, right? All right. So we're going to put our stripe stencil. I'm going to lay it flat so that it doesn't curl up or anything, even though it is done on, that is, oh gosh, what is the brand? Show Offs. That is the Show Offs brand of stencil material. I use the acetate setting on my Cricut, and I used more pressure. It doesn't always work for the really delicate. I don't like using that brand for really delicate cuts, but if it's like a really boxy cut like that, it works really good. I used acetate and more pressure so it goes multiple rounds. Now, the thing about Show Offs, if you've ever used, that's the Hobby Lobby brand. If you've ever used the Show Off stencil blanks, and it doesn't seem like your Cricut or your Silhouette is cutting through, there is a protective film that they put on every sheet, and it drives me crazy because I don't understand the purpose of it. Maybe it's for when people are actually physically tracing, like with like a permanent marker and cutting their stencils by hand. I think it's so that the permanent marker isn't actually on the stencil itself. When they're done cutting, they can pull that protective film off and all the markings from the permanent marker. Well, as us Cricut and Silhouette users, that's frustrating because I forget sometimes that it has that protective film. When you pull that protective film off, it cuts way better. There's something about that protective film that our blades don't like. So if you've ever used the Show Off spray and it never seemed to work for you, it's probably that protective film that was getting in your way. Okay, so let's go ahead and blow dry that. Let's do, our pumpkin is already base coated. Let's add some dimension to it, okay? Before we start doing our drizzle, because we can do the drizzle all at once, let's go ahead and add some dimension. So we're going to use this Warm Sunset, okay? Straight from the bottle, Warm Sunset. And we're also going to add a little bit of yellow, okay? Right here we used white. I want there to be a little bit of contrast, so I'm going to use yellow to ghost it out for the pumpkin and its highlighting, okay? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my angle brush that we've been using. This is I think this is the 1/2 inch or the 3/8. Yeah, this is the 1/2 inch. We may bump down to 3/8. Okay, and I'm just going to give it a wet coat. That just means I'm base coating it again, okay? I'm just going to give it a wet coat. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not going to trace it just because this gets kind of tucked underneath the drizzle and into the cupcake itself. So you don't really see the bottom of the pumpkin, but I like to use the shape of the pumpkin to help me with my highlighting and my shading. So what I have is I have a dirty brush, which just means I have my base coat color on the brush itself. I did not wash it, and I just added a little bit of yellow to my brush. I'm going to work on the outside of the pumpkin, and I'm going to work my way in, okay? I'm just keeping that yellow on the very outside of the pumpkin, okay? There we go. So if you notice this side, let me see if I can get that glare. This side has a little bit of highlight on the very edge, and this side doesn't. So that's the difference that it makes. So let's do that again. We're just going to pick up a little bit of that yellow on the very tip. And instead of having it on this side like we did, we're going to put it on this side. We're going to just outline And just be very cautious of where we're putting that yellow. And we're just going to kind of thin it out. Okay, and we're going to smooth out our brush strokes a little bit. And that gives it, that's the outside highlight. Now let's do the inside section of the pumpkin, and we're going to do the same thing. So all I'm doing is I'm adding just the tiniest little layer of orange just to keep it the flow of my brush from drying out. Adding just a little bit of the yellow, and I'm going to outline this side of the section. I'm going to flip my brush over, and I'm going to outline this side of the section and make them meet. So I'm making like a really long oval, but I'm being very careful not to get that yellow on the center of this section. Okay. Just kind of flat out my brush strokes. So now that pumpkin has good dimension. Okay. Super simple. Didn't have to work too hard for it, right? Okay, Sheila says, I'm having so much trouble with multiple coats of colors, leaving ridges on my painting that you can see when the light places a glow. Okay, so that means you're using way too much paint on your brush around the edge of that particular element. If it's say it's the top of this cupcake, when you load your brush up, I want you to empty it right here in the center, and then go to the edges and use that leftover paint. Even if it takes a little bit longer, use that leftover paint to do the edges, and then come back to the center and spread it out and make them meet. Usually when you have paint ridges, it means you're using way too much paint, one, or it means you're using too small of a brush and you're having to really goop the paint on to make it spread out to the size that you need. Sometimes it's the brush size and the amount of paint you're using on the brush, or it's just the amount of paint that you're using on the brush for haste, right? We're just get that on there real quick and smooth it out. Well, if it's on your brush, it's in your brush, right? So let's try to use as little amount of paint as possible to avoid paint ridges. If I can think of any more tips on that, I'll pass them along to you. If they inspect your cupcake, they are not different. Yes, ma'am, Miss Lori, that is exactly right. That we don't need that negativity in our life, and we will show you the door as I go on. You done shown me that you're not my friend because you were judging my stripes. It's like we don't let that negativity into this house. Hold on one second. Just looking at my. Okay. All right. So let me regroup a little bit. We need to do our drizzle. We also need to do our stem and our leaves. I'm going to freehand those. I'm not going to trace them, but don't worry. They're on your design. So you don't have to freehand them or you can trace them. You do not have to freehand them. I'm going to freehand them because they're on a mixed media pad. I don't have to match anything up to the edge. So let's go ahead and do our drizzle. Let's blow dry everything. I'll catch up on a couple comments. Oh, whose birthday is it? Hold on. We may see a 3 where we are. Oh, well, hunker down, as my mama would say, Cindy. We need you. I want to see your name pop up on the next live, okay? Don't do like we do here in Louisiana. Don't sit on the front porch and watch it. Don't do that. We're crazy, okay? We don't take weather warnings seriously here. Please hunker down, board up the house. I need my friend Cindy to be here for the next live. Okay? Okay, you promise me? Pinky promise? Pinky promise? Love it. I just purchased a smaller media pad to play. Leanne, I love mixed media pads. I love these things. I doodle in them. I just kind of sit and do some mixed media work just to kind of like decompress without having an actual plan. It's just, they're so much fun. And especially when you just want to paint something, but you don't want to have a million canvases around, because if you do something on canvas, they take up so much space. This doesn't take up any more space in the book than the book itself, right? And you already had the book, so it's already, the space of the artwork is already allotted for. Ooh, Christy, I'm making a Halloween pumpkin. Isn't it fresh? It's fresh. I went out and got me one of those makeup sponges, and it was nice. It was perfect. Shaylin, yes, these little makeup sponges are amazing. This Graham Wallace. Don't be trolling over here. Graham's a dad joke connoisseur. He goes, I'm falling in love with this cupcake. I see you. Okay, so that didn't want to turn off. So Sheila, I typically use a 2-inch brush for most things, but if I could come across a 3-inch brush, you better believe I'd use it. You know, I just haven't been able to come across a 3-inch brush in a craft store that wasn't intended for oils. And oil brushes, when you're using acrylics, get like bristle, not just brush strokes, but bristle strokes because they're coarser brushes. And so other than specialty brushes offline, I haven't found a 3-inch brush. I bet you could go to Home Depot though. I bet you go to Home Depot and they have some really nice. You're going to pay a pretty penny for it. The nice soft hair-like brushes that are like 3 or 4 inches wide. If you're painting really big pieces and you're having that issue, I would definitely think about investing in one, especially for base coating. Like base coating an entire design on a door hanger, it may save you one time, and then two, y'all look how nice this was just to match up. Now my pumpkin, I got real generous with my pumpkin. Okay. I don't know if I want to line up my pumpkin or if I'm going to no, I'm not going to line up my pumpkin. I'm going to line up my cupcake. My pumpkin, I freehanded, right? Oh, Lord of mercy. So we're just going to lay that down. So I held my hand here like a hinge, flipped it over and didn't let anything move. And I just slid my graphite paper in. So we're going to pick up our little tracing tool. You can use the back of a really skinny paintbrush, or you can use I really didn't need to outline the very top of the cupcake. Cupcake's painted. I just needed to outline the drizzle. So that's what we're going to do. Ignore this, what I did up here. Ignore that. You don't need to do that. Your cupcake's already painted, so it technically already has tracing lines. Look what I did. I did this backwards. Let's flip that back over. No. Okay. Now let's try that again. Now, once we get this drizzle on, we're going to be in Shade City. We're going to start adding some dimension to our cupcake, okay? So if that's the part you've been waiting for, we're just one step closer. There we go. My graphite paper is getting kind of old, which is really good. You want some old pieces around because they don't transfer as much graphite. So if you're working on really light surfaces, these are like if you're doing like really soft baby colors, these are your best friends. You don't want a fresh from the package graphite. But for these darker colors, it may have been nice to have those a brand new sheet of graphite paper. Okay, so let's grab an angle brush. I'm going to use like a 3/8. It's a little smaller than what we've been using. Only because we're starting to get smaller and smaller into the elements. This is a really small and very precise element. We're going to use, what is it going to be? I don't know if I want to do it white or if I want to do it. Yeah, we want to do it white. Let's do it white. So warm white. Okay. See how I didn't start on the very edge, Sheila? I kind of started off and I'm just emptying my brush. And now I'm going to start pushing. I'm going to start pushing that white around. It may take me an extra coat and a half, right? Just knocking the majority of that paint off my brush. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and smooth out what's left over. And that should reduce paint ridges to a point. Acrylic is thick paint, okay? And it's prone to paint ridges. But there's tips and tricks to get around them. I dip the very chisel of my brush in my paint usually. 9 times out of 10, I am dipping only the chisel in my paintbrush. of my paintbrush in the paint when I'm picking up paint. So I'm not picking up a lot. Now, if I'm base coating, obviously I'm going to scoop that. But if I'm doing an element like this, every little section of a project I call an element. So this drizzle is an element. That pumpkin is an element. This part of the cupcake wrapper. I'm just fussy painting this on here. Okay. See, I'm emptying out right here. Right there. Okay. Now I'm not going to get super close to the pumpkin on the very bottom because watch, we're going to go 1, 2. We're going to tuck that pumpkin. Like I said, we weren't going to see the bottom of the pumpkin. That's why I wasn't really paying too close of attention. We were going to stick that pumpkin. It's like it was just kind of placed inside that icing, right? Okay. So that's one coat. We are going to need 2 coats. So let's go ahead and blow dry so we can go ahead and quickly put on our second coat. Yeah, sometimes. Okay, so you see how splotchy this is right here? That's just 1 coat. I usually have to do 2 coats. A coat, coat and a half. Coat, coat and a half. Some colors, 2 solid coats. Some of those reds need 2 coats. Oh, they give me just, they just make me want to pull my hair out. Reds are not fun to mess with sometimes, but there are tricks. All right, so I'm going in. Okay, so yeah, I want that back on the. And look, my brush is getting really goopy. And see how the paint is starting to get closer and closer to the metal? I'm going to clean it. Okay. Now, I went straight for the edge on this one with fresh paint on my brush, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but it's going to be okay. I can push it around, but it's just going to take a little bit of work. There we go. So, empty it out. See how I just kind of just dropped the majority of that paint? See how much, there's not a lot of paint left on my brush. Okay, so I'm going to take that and just empty out my brush. And if I need to, spread that out a little bit. Okay. Now, I will say the wood will probably soak up your little drop zone. So I tend to move my drop zone a little bit just because I don't want one super thick piece, patch of wood. Your wood is thicker and it has more space for that liquid to soak into. So it'll soak in a little faster than this paper. This paper is only so thick and it can only soak in so much paint, and it's pretty much reached its threshold. So it's not really soaking in anymore. It's sitting on top of the already dried paint. And I will tell you, this white could stand another coat, but we're not going to do it. I'll tell you right now, I ain't going to do it. Because I don't have that kind of patience. So we're just going to go on with it. It's a little splotchy, but we'll work with it. We'll work with it. So we've got everything base coated. We've got all our stripes and polka dots and all the little things that would have need to be sandwiched in between our shading. So that's exactly how I recommend it. Oh no, we did not do our polka dots. Erica Wallace, What is your problem? So let's get some yellow, some white. Let's ghost out some yellow. Let's get a Post-it note. Okay. And I'm going to do, should I do a curve? Nope, I'm not going to do a curve. I'm going to do this right here. I'm just going to take a Post-it note. And I'm just going to just kind of fit some polka dots in there. The Post-it note is acting like kind of like a masking tape. Oop. Here we go. Do you want to do one? How do I want to go about that? Right there. Okay. I think I'm good. That's all I'm going to do. Sorry. I was like polka dots, but we didn't have polka dots. But when I looked at the mock-up, I was like, yes, we do have polka dots. Let's throw those on. Now we need to blow dry it because we're about to shade. All right. So let me look at my mock-up again. If you're wondering what I'm doing when I pick up my phone, I'm looking at my mock-up. I'm looking at my mock-up because I didn't print one. I normally have one printed out. And it makes it a lot easier for me to follow along without having to pull up my phone because I feel like it's rude. It's so rude. Okay. So let's throw a couple of leaves on here before we get too crazy into the shading, because we do need leaves and a stem. And we're just going to pick up any old brown. I have this is raw umber, but milk chocolate. Any of your brown. Well, here's milk chocolate. Let's use it. Let's use milk chocolate. Raw umber is really dark. Okay. And I'm just going to take a flat brush, a filbert brush, anything that you're comfortable with to do this little itty bitty. This is just a little bit. This is a flat brush. And I'm just going to go put on like just a little oval right over that top of the pumpkin. I'm going to leave it as is. We're not going to go too far into the detail of that because I'd rather put the detail in my leaves. So we're going to blow dry that. Just a wee bit of paint on your brush. Yes, just a wee bit. Where did you get that paintbrush? Which paintbrush? Which one? Which one was I using? Which one was it, Heather? Was it the rose gold one? I got that. You can get those on Amazon now. The Royal and Langnickel Pro Choice brushes. Good morning, Miriam. I would like to see your painting up close on an angle with the light on it. Okay. It's messy. Okay. It's not as perfect as you think, especially on mixed media paper. I paint way better on wood. So let's see. Do you see right there? There's a paint ridge. And there's a paint ridge. There's one. See, it's not perfectly flat. It's not perfectly flat. There's a few paint ridges in the pumpkin. They're just minimal. You don't want them to build up and build up and build up. Okay, so let's see. Where do we want to start? Let's start from the bottom and work our way up because the pumpkin really is layered that way. So let's go ahead and just do that. So let's find us an angle brush. Okay, let's get us a clean palette. You can use wax paper. You can use meat trays. That's what I tend to use is a meat tray. I'm going to use, let me see what this looks like in here. This is clean water. I'm gonna be a rebel and try and use water. Okay. I don't usually use water. I usually use floating medium, but we're going to try and use water. We just don't want our brush to be sopping wet. So let's use some slate gray. I'm going to load it from the side. Okay. With light pressure. Okay. We're just going to go around. Just going to go around. Y'all know me, I don't normally use water. I normally use floating medium because I can control it. I haven't practiced. I've been practicing a little bit more with water on my downtime. And it does look good. It's just, I feel like I can get a stronger shade with my floating medium. Okay, so I've got the cupcake wrapper completely shaded on the bottom. Now what I need to do is I need to go underneath the actual yellow part of the cupcake. So I'm going to flip it this way because I want to get on this side. And I always work better when the toe of my brush is to the left. So I'm going to clean my brush. Okay, dampen my brush. So I have two water basins going on here, okay? I have one that I have dirty paint water, and then I have one that has clean paint water, but every time I dip into the clean paint water, it is transferring, even though it's just little by little, it's transferring dirty water in there because I'm cleaning it in dirty water and drying it off. Well, there's still paint in there, okay? So I'm not really like drudging it in there. I'm just dipping the bristles of it in the water, raking the majority of it off, and making sure the metal part of my brush is dry before I come back to my workstation. Okay. So I'm going to load from the side on the very tip of my brush. And I'm going to start shading underneath the yellow part of the cupcake. Okay. This just is creating a shadow that the cupcake is sitting on top of this wrapper. So it gives it kind of a 3D look, kind of pops, makes the cupcake itself pop up over it. We are going to take Marigold as our next shading color. Okay, so we've got Sunny Day. We've got Marigold. We just need a drop. Oh, sorry. So do you see how much paint I use versus, I mean, that's, for me, it's very hard for me to get a teeny tiny, that's the smallest amount that I can pour sometimes, and I'm never going to use it. So shading doesn't take much paint. It's just that little extra oomph. Just that little extra oomph that will take your painting to the next level without having to rely on paint pen. So I'm going to go ahead and, since I already have my canvas turned this way, I'm going to go ahead and do my drop shadow. Oh, I put way too much. I'm going to do a drop shadow underneath the orange. Okay. Like I said, I usually use floating medium, but today I'm going to practice because practice makes progress. It doesn't make perfect. It makes progress. And honestly, okay, I'm cleaning in the dirty paint water, drying off my brush, picking up some clean water in my brush, drying off my brush. And the way I dry off my brush, so I don't have my paint, it's attached to my paint cart. Pretend this is my paint towel, okay? When I dip in, actually, I have an extra paint towel right here. Let's do that. When I dip my brush, so it's sopping wet, okay? That's all I do. I'm not like squeegeeing it. I'm just kind of laying it 1 or 2 times. Okay, so let's reload it with water. I'm just kind of really paying attention to the metal part. I don't want to leave any droplets of water on that metal part, okay? And every so often I will kind of like just kind of tap the bristles. And then I'm picking up the Marigold. Okay. Let me flip my canvas around because I want to go on the very, what they call the apex, which is the most curved part of anything that's kind of a round shape like that, on the very tip top, right? I just want to go whoop. I don't want to outline the entire thing on the bottom. I just want to do a little bit of a highlight. Well, it's actually a low light. It's a shade, but like you just want to accentuate the very curved part of that that shape. You don't want to perfectly outline it because then it looks so like a coloring book. You don't want to do that. You just want to add some dimension to it. Okay, so far that's what we've got. And I wish we had a before and after to show you the difference between base coated and when we put the shading on there, because it is a huge difference. Even though it looks subtle, there's subtle differences, but it makes a huge visual difference. Okay, good, Sheila. I was hoping. I was like, don't ever think that this is perfection or this is the standard. Do not, girl. This is arts and crafts over here. We are not fine artists. I mean, we are fine, right? But we are not fine artists. Let's see. Okay, so for our cupcake, this part right here, let's take, I'm going to do burnt orange. You can also use dried clay. Actually, let's see which one's darker. Or not dry clay, Georgia clay. This is Georgia clay. This is burnt orange. Let's get our warm sunset out. This is going to be really subtle. Let's go ahead and go with Georgia clay. I want to use that burnt orange so bad. I'm trying to keep all my paints together so that I can give you all a paint list. If you're wanting a paint list of everything that we've used today, put the word cupcake in the comments, and I will do our link buffet that includes our color list. That way you do not have to keep up with the color list as we paint. I will put, if you put the word cupcake in the comment, I will give you where you can get where it'll send you to the shop for the digital templates, and where you can get a blank. And it'll also have the color code, the recipe card for our design today. So let's dip our paintbrush in water. Like I said, I'm not like hitting the bottom. I'm just dipping the bristles. Trying not to get that metal part because I don't want any excess water on the metal part. So I'm really not even getting the metal part wet. But I do dry it off just in case. So let's go ahead and load our brush. I'm going to go ahead and just like we did, let me turn it this way. Just like we did with these scallops, let's just do the apex of this scallop. Okay. We don't want it to be super distracting. We want to do the edges. Okay. Let's pick up some Georgia clay. Burnt orange is a good alternative, but it's a little lighter, so it won't be as much of a contrast, noticeable of a transition, but it will create a transition. This Georgia clay is just much richer. All right, I'm using water. I'm not hating it. The thing that will upset me is if I start seeing that little ghost of a line, that little shadow that it creates sometimes with dirty paint water. Because that's what I struggle with. I struggle with dirty paint water creating a shadow where my brush stops. But we shall practice. All right, so let's go ahead. I always like to shade the very edges of things, so where things transition into another element. So this right here touches, right? So I'm going to throw just a light little transition. Plus, this cupcake is round in nature, so let's go ahead and just add that shade to create the illusion that it is round and it's kind of tucking in behind itself. Okay. Let's see, I need a little bit more water. Brush is drying out. Okay. Every time I bring my brush to the palette, I'm making sure that the water side of my brush is staying crystal clear or clear enough. Like I said, with that floating medium, it's a lot easier to judge. And with water, it can get murky really fast. So let's try to not let it get murky. Okay. So that's what we've got so far. We do need to go underneath the drizzle. Okay. We are going to, I'm going to turn it this way because I'm going to tuck it in this way. We are going to shade underneath the drizzle by using our Georgia clay. Okay. I'm going to pick a side and kind of stick with it. I'm just creating a little bit of a shadow just to make this drizzle pop. Okay. Okay, one last little. Now, if your shade is not as saturated or as dark as you would like it to be, let it dry and you can always go back over it with a second coat. It'll build because we're putting such a light coat, especially watered down. It's just putting a barely there coat. So if it's not getting as dark as you'd like it, let it dry and go back in with the same brush, same color, and do a second coat. It will richen up what you've already done. There we go. I think that's just fine. I'm going to okay, there we go. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to clean my brush because we're going to move on to a new color. We may venture back to that Georgia clay for the pumpkin just a little bit, but I want to finish my drizzle. So let's blow dry this because I'm going to have to touch that same edge with a lighter color. And I don't want any of it to bleed. Christy Rayner, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, boo. I'm so excited. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's Monday and you have the day off. She's a hairdresser. She does hair, y'all. She is she works magic with a pair of shears and a tinting brush. I'm telling you. She's amazing. So since it's Monday, you have the day off. What are you doing with your birthday that falls on a Monday and you have the day off? That's exciting. I'm excited for you. I hope you don't do a daggum thing. I hope you just rest and be treated like the queen that you are. I'm working on a client right now. Stop it. No. She's dedicated. Let's put it that. She's dedicated. She loves her people. Christy. Does your client know it's your birthday? I'm sure you've told them. But did they know it before you booked it? I'm sure they would have said, no, ma'am, it's your birthday. I can't say anything. I work on my birthday too. I mean, I work from home. So, I mean, I leisurely work for my birthday if I want to. Usually that entails just drawing a design, but that still works. Okay, so I've got my drizzle. I'm just going to pick a side. Okay. That's really harsh. I'm going to just kind of tap my finger on that and thin that out. So I'm going to do the apex or the extra curved part of something around. And I'm going to go from apex to apex, okay? So if you want to know what I'm doing, I did from the curved part here to the curved part here, left it bare, curved part to curved part. I'm going to leave this bare, curved part to curved part. I am just picking a side and sticking with it and working around. Okay. And that's going to create a shadow. Okay. If you're wondering what I'm doing with my finger, I'm just kind of tapping some of that away. If I feel like it's too dark, just while it's wet, I'm just kind of tapping it and it's kind of moving the paint around. Okay. It doesn't need to be a super noticeable. I need to thin that out a little bit. So we're going to use our water and kind of thin that out, kind of move it around, add some water to our brush to move stuff around, thin things out. Okay. Like I said, on edges, I do like to over exaggerate some of the edges a little bit with my shading. So I'm just going to bring it all the way up. Now don't forget this part, but we're going to come back to that. We want to finish our drizzle. Okay, this is just that gray that we used down here. Same gray. Okay. Now, like I said, we're going to over exaggerate this drizzle a little bit on this side just because it does kind of curve around. Y'all, it's really popping. Love it. Okay, so now I'm going to go underneath my pumpkin. Let me add a little bit of water. My brush is dry now a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go underneath my pumpkin with the same gray because it's got, the reason I'm using the gray is because the shade is actually on the white. It's not on the pumpkin, but the pumpkin is creating the shadow. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go underneath the pumpkin and create the little buildup of frosting that the pumpkin being pressed into the frosting creates. So we're just going to put a little bit of a shadow there. It makes our frosting look fluffier. All right. And I told you we were probably going to reventure to the orange, our shading orange for our pumpkin, but I wanted to get that drizzle taken care of first before I started messing around with that pumpkin again. So let's take our Georgia clay. Okay. Load it onto our brush. And just where that frosting and the pumpkin meat. There we go. And I'm just going to, just a little bit. We don't want to hide all of our highlight. Just want to put a little bit, just a little bit. It's barely there. You on camera will barely see that. Now, we are done with all the shading. We're going to go into making some of our, oh, wait. Before one more little element. That she heard your mouth. She does now. See, you're trying to keep secrets from your clients. Don't keep secrets. Okay, so I want to take and create just a little bit of a leaf. That's going to need 2 coats. So I'm just a little bit of a leaf. Here we go. I should probably use a smaller brush. There we go. I'm not going to do the 2 leaves. In the template, there's 2 leaves, but that's a bigger leaf. I'm just going to let it be 1. I love it. It's so cute. So cute. Just tucked in. Okay, now we're going to take our detail brush. Okay, we are going to wet it. Okay. We're going to take, let me look at my mock-up. Okay, we're going to take our orange and let me show you. Okay, so when I dip into a puddle of paint, okay, I dip in with a detail brush. I dip in and I rotate and pull. Do you see that little tail that I create of paint? Okay, that's all I'm doing whenever I'm dipping into paint with a detail brush. And then I just take my detail brush and I make little sprinkles with light pressure. We don't want our bristles to be really thick. We want the width of the detail brush to be the width of the sprinkle. So we don't want to necessarily create wider bristles by pressing down. I'm going to do about 5 of each. And we're going to do about 3 colors, maybe. You know, let's do our green just to incorporate a little bit of that green, since the only thing that that green is on is the leaf. It'll kind of help flow that green without that leaf looking out of place. Okay, every so often, see how I'm going like kind of like a kind of catty corner with each sprinkle. Watch it. So I've got 4 sprinkles. I'm going to go up and down. Every so often, I'm going to go up and down. Now I need yellow. All right, so our last sprinkle color is our yellow. My yellow is super dry. Can I find any good yellow? Y'all, if your paint gets a little bit of that film on top of it, pour a new puddle. You can thin it out with some blending gel or some water, but it's never going to be the same consistency again. And so a couple of horizontals, a vertical, and I'm just filling in because yellow isn't as distracting as the other colors. I'm just filling in all that negative space that needs kind of like, it just needs something, but I don't want it to be too terribly distracting. So there's our sprinkles. And there's our cupcake. There's our cupcake. Oh, it's super, super cute. Now, what I can do is I can leave it in the book and just flip the page when it's completely dry and start on a whole new piece, or I can tear it out and I can frame it and put it somewhere in the house, or I could put it in a binder with a page protector. But what I want to do is when it's completely done drying, I want to seal it. And you can use your same sealers. All the sealers that you use, you can even spray seal it if you wanted it to. But what I like to do is I'd like to use brush sealers for my mixed media pads. I'm probably going to do my high gloss or my satin, but I want everything to be completely dry. Let's see. My mom has scheduled us to teach the past 5 years on my birthday. Oh, well, at least you get to hang out with people on your birthday. I tend to keep to myself on my birthday. I like to just hang with my family. My friends do throw a little bit of a dinner. It's usually a really low key dinner at one of their houses, and we let the kids play because that's just my jam. That's just how I like to roll. Do y'all want to do a little bit of shading while we're waiting for this to dry? Because I have my shading brushes over there, and we could throw just a little bit of a highlight on there. Let's do it. Let's do it. Now you can take a shade lighter of each color and shade with that, and that's typically what I do. But today we're just gonna take white. I'm gonna buff it in to the brush, just the teeny tiniest little bit of white, and we're gonna buff off. Like we're gonna try to buff the majority of it off. So I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper. I have one somewhere. So we're just gonna go. Oh yeah, we just want the little wispiest cloud to create when we do that. I'm just going to lightly buff in some of the roundest areas. I'm going to create a little bit of a highlight. Can you see that just a little bit? It's not noticeable. It's not super noticeable. It's just noticeable enough. I'm not going to do any on this yellow because it's just going to be wasted effort. So I'm just picking up the teeniest, tiniest little bit of paint, tapping it, and I'm rotating my brush to tap it, disperse it evenly. And then I'm just rubbing most of it off. I hate that noise. I hate it so much. I'm just lightly buffing in circular motions. Now, if something was kind of crescent shaped, you could totally just do a crescent shape. Okay. You do not have to buff in circular motions for everything. That's just when I know something's kind of roundish, that's what I do. You don't want to concentrate it in one spot for too long because you don't want it to be, you don't want it to get white. You just want it to be like I said, the wispiest little cloud in the sky that's barely there, but you see just the little wispy, that's the look that you're going for. I'm not going to do any, I just wanted to do it on like the pumpkin, in the very center of the pumpkin, to create just a little bit of a highlight. I'm going to do it right here in the very curved part of this section and the very little curved part of that section, and it creates like a glare. Okay, there we go. And we're done. All right. Okay, so if you enjoyed painting this with me today, you could order blanks and make door hangers or ornaments or tier tray set pieces over at Home Creations. And if you put the word cupcake down in the comments, I will link where you can get the printable template, the JPEG, or order a blank in any size from 4-inch to 24-inch. And I will also put the color list that we used here today to create our beautiful artwork in our mixed media pad. And again, that word is cupcake. And if you have any questions, make sure you put them down in the comments. And if you are free on Thursday this week, I would love for you to come join me on Thursday. We'll be sharing some tips and tricks on how to make your painting a little bit easier for you and to take your painting to the next level. That will be at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. But until then, I will see you. See you later. Bye.